Sorry about that. Sorry. Okay. You can put a cold on top. Just so
Yeah.
okay. Sorry about that.
Bluetooth connection succeeded. Enter Bluetooth.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Nobody's on that. Sorry. All right, we finished it when we started. Yes, Jesus. Bless Jesus.
Good morning.
Let's go ahead and pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for life, health, and strength. We thank you for this church, for this time to study your word, to learn more about you, to see you in a new light. Please allow your spirit to come and just open up our understanding, our ears, our eyes, that we may see and understand your truth, to respond to it in trust and obedience. These things we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, we are in Luke chapter 23. We'll do parts 1, 2, and 3. Like I said, we'll slow down through these two chapters, sections, so we can kind of take our time, make sure we digest it properly and go from there. All right, let us read our vision statement. All right, 1, 2, 3, go. All right. So as we practice that, hopefully by the end of the year, everybody will have that desire. See a day when we're one family of Jesus followers who bear spiritual fruit, so all people may come to know Christ. Amen. All right, background into chapter 23. What's some information we should know or take into account as we look at this particular chapter?
The plot to kill Jesus.
The plot to kill Jesus, all right, by whom?
By
Okay, religious leaders. All right,
Taken from the temple, I mean, from the place.
the place.
Yeah.
What place is that called? The Garden of Gethsemane. All right,
Passover.
Passover, all right.
Satan enters Judas.
Satan entered Judas so that he will betray him.
Forget about Peter denying Jesus.
All right, Peter denied Jesus.
3 times.
3 times.
Before the rooster.
Right.
So that lets you know all of the trial had happened that night. Well, not all of the trial, all of the trial with the Sanhedrin, the Jewish religious leaders happened at night. Right? So in the middle of the night. All right, what else? Is that it?
Jesus is mocked and beaten.
Was he mocked and beaten?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, Peter cut off one of the,
At the end of chapter 22.
Yeah.
So he was mocked by the
guards.
guards of the Sanhedrin.
Mhm.
So the religious leaders. So those soldiers, because you understand, they were in control of basically the Jewish community at this time. So they had their own guards. Think of it as they had their own police. They had their own court system. They ran it. Rome just oversaw that,
Yeah.
but they were able to rule in their own sphere. All right. Anything else?
And, but Peter cut off one of the servants' ear.
Peter cut off one of the servants here trying to fight. All right.
Yes.
Institution of the Lord's Supper.
Lord's Supper. All right. So we know people during this time believing that Jesus is the Messiah are expecting him to overthrow Rome. That's what they think the Messiah is going to do. He mentions the destruction of the temple. He's talked about the end times. He's been arrested in the Garden of Gethsemane. Peter has denied Jesus, and he's being tried by the Sanhedrin at night. Okay. So now when we go to chapter 23, where was Jesus then taken for trial? To Pilate. All right. Who is this?
Roman governor. He was in charge of public order.
Basically, he's the Roman politician in charge of that particular area.
Right.
All right. Why did they do this? What does John 18:31 say?
And he was not allowed to put a man in jail.
Okay,
People probably want to decide what to do.
correct. Now, was that true? Were they not allowed to put anyone to death?
No, I mean, it went on for.
They could stone,
Yeah,
but the type of death they want, they weren't able to do that. What was the type of death they want? Crucifixion. Jews could not do that, only Romans could. All right. So is that important?
Yes.
Why? To fulfill prophecies. So it's not just that Jesus died. He has to die a certain way.
Correct. It must be fulfilled.
So even in the way he died, God has set the whole thing up such that everybody who's supposed to be where they're positioned plays a role. And many times we don't think about how prophecy has to be fulfilled and how God works everything out prophetically to achieve what he's already said was going to happen. Think about this. When they were prophesied, or when it was prophesied how Jesus would die hanging on a tree like this, crucifixion hadn't been invented yet. So then you start thinking about like, wait, what? Were the Romans in power when the prophecy had happened?
No.
No.
Romans weren't even in power. So you're talking about something that happened however many years before Jesus actually comes. We know it was more than 400. So we're talking about 4, 5, 6, maybe 700 years. To put that in perspective, what year is it now?
2023.
What year is it 700 years before now?
I gotta go get drink my soda. That's before anybody else.
Let me just round it off. 2000 minus 700, 13. Now imagine predicting America as a nation having the influence that it does and predicting Donald Trump being the president.
Oh.
Oh,
I
Lord.
know. I did that to get you excited because some of y'all looking like you sleep. I would have picked Obama, but then that wouldn't have worked. So I just picked Donald Trump. I know that is woke some of y'all up. Some of y'all's like, what? What? Oh, I'm woke now. I know that's too much. Sorry. That's for some of y'all, that's too much. But the point is this, watch this, 700 years. You predict not only a country that has not come into existence, but you accurately predict and describe exactly who he was and what he was going to come into. That's why the Bible has already proven itself to be accurate. Because could you ever guess or predict something like that? That has never happened before. No, has not, never happened before. So that's why all these things have to take place. That's why Judas has to be born. It'd be better for him not to, but it has to be born because he has to be basically betrayed. The Messiah has to come. The Messiah has to die. All right. What are the accusations?
Brother Newsom, I have a
Yes.
question. Obviously, I knew that, I mean, Jesus knew that he was going to die for the sins of the world, but is there somewhere where it predicted the type of death he would have?
Hanging on a tree. So in, what does it say? I want to say Isaiah. When he starts talking about the messianic promises, where it talks about he was bruised for our transgressions,
Right.
chastised peace upon him, and things like this. And so the hanging on a tree is in reference. Now they don't go specifically and say he's going to be crucified like that. They don't use
Right,
the
that's
word.
what I was asking.
The word has not been it hasn't been invented yet. But when they
Oh.
talk about being hung on a tree, being killed on a tree, the stripes and all that type of stuff, it is a foreshadowing. It's kind of like, imagine going back in time, once again, 700 years, and trying to explain to somebody what a TV is. How would you explain what a TV is? Like it's a flat, what? A box that displays images of people. Well, are people actually in it? Well, no. It displays images of people. Or are the images real? No, they're moving. Well, what do you mean? They're moving. It's not real. But how is it displaying people if they're not real? So it's trying, the Bible in its foretelling can only use language that the person at that time can really understand. And that's why a lot of people, when we talk about Daniel, when we talk about Revelation, a lot of people don't understand, like, wait, what does that mean? Some of it is literal, some of it is figurative. And so like before, 30, 40 years ago, as I've said before, people couldn't understand how can the whole world see something that happens at the same time. Why? Because technology hadn't been invented yet. And 30, 40 years ago, we would never imagine that literally the entire world could see the same thing at the same time all over the world in real time. It was like, how's that going to happen? Now, it's like, yeah, obviously, that it's whenever Jesus does come back, or anything that happens even now, today, we're able to see it in real time, no matter where we are. As technology catches up, as basically our understanding is clearer, it makes sense. It's like, oh, that's how that's going to happen. Even though it's been predicted, we just don't know how.
Where you find the curse on the tree is Deuteronomy 21 and 21, 22.
Deuteronomy 21, 22. So, second part are the accusations. What are the accusations against Jesus?
Forbidding people forbidding to pay taxes to Caesar.
Misleading the nation, forbidding to pay taxes to Caesar, and saying that he himself is Christ, aka. Yeah, right? So those were the three charges that they brought before Pilate. Now, think about this. What have they charged Jesus with in their court? Blasphemy. It's not mentioned nowhere here. So they charged him with blasphemy. They declared him guilty in their court. When they go to Pilate, they say something different. So compare them to what they convicted Jesus of in their Jewish trials. I just answered that. I don't know why I talked. But basically that's what it is. So even through the whole, as we go through this, and I think a lot of people don't really or didn't really realize how unlawful the whole procedure was. Like what actually happened. Some of you have been through the court system, or you have family members who've been through the court system. And if in your system or in that situation, if you or a family member ever went from court to court in the middle of the night with false witnesses against them, how would you feel? Extremely upset, frustrated, all of that. All right. So what are the charges against Jesus? We just mentioned the three. Was he guilty?
No.
Okay, let me ask, okay, I know that the Jewish, they said blasphemy. But then when they brought him to Pilate, he is the Christ, a king. I mean, couldn't that almost be the same? Or no? I'm just saying, I'm asking questions.
Well, look at you, that's all, come on now.
I'm just asking a question because they're saying that, I guess they're saying he is the Christ, a king. And that to me,
So watch this. Is that a true statement?
yes.
But in their mind, it's blasphemy.
Yeah.
So this is how we know everybody understood the claim. Because what does Pilate say right after that?
He says that he had found no fault in it.
No.
Oh, no, not when it's,
So Pilate asked him, saying,
oh, yeah.
I promise I'm not making it up. It's right there.
Yeah, right.
It's not like we trying to read into something. Pilate directly asks him because he says, look, you're the Christ. The Christ, everybody knew who the Christ was. The King of the Jews. The Messiah is supposed to do what? What have we been talking about the last 3 weeks? They believed he was going to overthrow Rome and establish his kingdom as the king of the Jews.
Yeah.
That's what everybody believed the Messiah to do, because that's what it had been prophesied that he was to do. His kingdom would last forever. Why would his kingdom last forever? Because God promised who? That from his lineage, the Messiah would come and his kingdom would last forever. He promised who? David.
David.
So he said that. He said, from you, the Messiah will come and his lineage, his kingdom will last forever. So in their minds, they're like, okay, we need to make sure that he checks all these boxes, which is why Matthew gives a genealogy and Luke gives a genealogy to tie Jesus back to David. Because without that, he's disqualified from being what? King, the Messiah.
Right.
So if he doesn't have any ties to David, it's like, oh, no, not a candidate. Can't do it. So the gospel writers go through the process of letting you know, look, he is in David's genealogy. Thus, he is qualified to be king. All right. So the accusation Pilate questioned Jesus about in verse 3, are you the king of the Jews?
If you say so.
Now, this is why we got to be careful about how it's not a question, it's a statement. He says, yeah, it is as you say. So it's not like, well, if you say so. No, it's yes, you're right.
You have said so.
I know, but it's not a question for us. So you understand what I'm saying?
Right, but it's an affirmative, like he said.
Correct. Yes, you're right. So it's not a questioning, it's a declaration of yes, you're right.
Got it.
Yeah, because there's a difference. You know how when somebody could ask you a question. You say it is, I don't know. There it is. But he's making this statement.
Okay.
So then, when he does that, so I often think about like the tenseness of the situation. So in the tenseness of the situation, how does Jesus respond? It is as you say so. What does John 13:36 say? I didn't look that up. I didn't know you was gonna actually ask that question. If I thought you was gonna ask that question, I might have wrote it down, but I didn't write it down. Why would you say that?
While you have the light, believe in the light that you may become sons of light. These things Jesus spoke and departed and was healed. Oh, 13.
John 13:36.
Okay, Simon, Simon asked him, Lord, should
Yeah, I'm going
Are you
to
going? You just buy.
That don't make sense.
But that's what it want, that's what.
That's what it wrote. That might have been.
That's not
It's like, okay.
I'm thinking it's instead of 13.
Are we getting what we got right now?
Is that why you didn't write it down? Okay. All right.
That's why.
Let's change it. All right, let me help. Instead of 13, 18:36.
That makes more sense. You say rightly that I am the king for, I thought you wanted. For this cause I was born, and for this cause I have come into the world, that I should bear witness to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth hears my voice.
Are you reading John 18 and 36?
Yes. No.
Oh, Jesus answered, my kingdom.
Oh, yeah, my kingdom.
It's not of the world.
You get it together.
I don't want y'all saying. I'm trying to trick y'all. 18:36. He says, my kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, then my servants would be fighting so that I would not be handed over to the Jews. But as it is, my kingdom is not of this realm.
Oh, I thought you meant that, because I read down a little bit.
Okay.
37.
Let's go 37 to make people happy.
Yeah.
All right. Therefore, Pilate said to him, so you're a king. Jesus answered, you said correctly that I'm a king. For this I have been born, and for this I come into the world to testify to the truth. Everyone who has the truth hears my voice. This is where he says, and what is true. All right. So this is why it's so important to get all the perspectives of everything that's happening. So one of the best purchases you can make is, well, not just a study book, but there's a book out there that's called, I forgot the book called, but it's the Synoptic Gospels.
Yeah.
All right, that's a big word for all the Gospels pushed together. And so what they've done is they've actually created a book in chronological order of everything that's happened with all four books together. So the stuff that's like missing in others, the others will fill in to give you a better perspective of the entire situation. So we had that book. I forgot the name of that book. But Matthew, Mark, and Luke. John is not considered a synoptic, but this book puts all four gospels together and basically gives you a more accurate depiction of what actually happened. Their dialogue, what is said, because no writer basically does the whole thing and leaves that everybody kind of comes from their own perspective. So once you put it all together, now you see the conversation between him and Pilate. So now we go back to 23. All that stuff happens. Jesus responds. We know he says more to Pilate because Jesus mentions, where Pilate mentions, hey, what is true? And that's when he basically goes back to them because this conversation is back in private with them. It's not in front of everyone, but he takes them back privately and they have the conversation. Question. I want to make sure everybody's clear. So from that, what verdict does he say?
Find no guilt.
He's basically innocent. How many times was he declared not guilty?
3.
3 times.
So when you go through it, Pilate's gonna keep doing this. Heard 3, I heard 3, can I hear 4, 4, 4, 4, can I hear 5, 5? Let me see 5. Okay, so as we go through this, we'll see this. And Pilate goes to them and says what?
I know in this man.
All right, now what happens?
But the people cried out.
No,
This is what I don't understand. The people that came to hear him preach went against him?
correct.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify.
Now, not everybody,
Not everybody.
but the crowd, it was a large enough crowd who basically was, wait, and that's what I said. In the background, what are people thinking Jesus is supposed to do? Overthrow Rome. Now that he's gotten caught and he's not gonna overthrow Rome, it's like,
Why do we want
Okay.
you're not the Messiah because you're not willing to overthrow Rome. Fine,
Right.
we're going to reject you
Right.
as the what?
That's the
As
Messiah.
the Messiah. So now, if you're not the one who's gonna overthrow Rome, you're just another
False prophet.
whatever who deserves to be.
They didn't understand it was a bigger picture, did they?
No,
No.
of course not.
It sounded
Now,
to me
some
like it was more like, it was more like
Go
those
ahead.
men folks, it was more like the men folks saying that, because those women were crying.
Here we go. Oh, here we go.
I'm sure
the same thing, and that was.
Another story there. Oh, my goodness.
Be careful, we don't read into too much what had happened. Now, we do know the women were there crying when he was crucified. But to say, oh, only the men were saying crucify, that's a big.
Not all, but I just think the majority, and they
That's
just drowned them out.
Now, we can't, even in that situation, we can't even infer that because the Bible doesn't tell us that. All we know is that women were there at the foot of the cross crying. We also know that not all the disciples ran. Why? Because who was there? John was the only disciple that really didn't run away. How do we know John was there at the cross? Jesus spoke to John and Mary while he was dying on the cross. So if John wasn't there, Jesus couldn't say what he said. But John was the only one there because we've already learned all of the disciples ran, scattered, even Peter. Talked all that here, but boom, he got his pride shattered and he took off and ran. John stayed there, which is why John refers to himself as the disciple whom Jesus loved. But John can safely say, look, yeah, y'all ran, but I was there. I didn't run. So that's a whole nother situation. Watch this. The dynamic between Peter and John is a little different now. Peter, you ran your mouth, you talked all that mess. But when the chips was down, you look. I don't know what John said. I don't know how that dynamic went. But the point is this, that was always there. And we're going to find out Jesus has to actually restore Peter himself. We already know what's going to happen because Jesus already said, Satan has desired to what? Sift you like wheat. But when you're converted, what are you supposed to do? Strengthen your brother. So Jesus already knows. That's the great thing about my sin. Because guess what? My sin never takes God by surprise. And actually, my sin is used by God to help my brother and sister. Because when I sin and I blow it, guess what? I should be more sympathetic to you when you sin and blow it. And should not look down on you and accusatory pointing and say, how dare you? I should basically look down with a compassionate, graceful recognition that if you fail, guess what? So can I. And just like you want grace and mercy to be lifted up and helped in the situation, so do I. So I should always have the stance and the attitude of grace, mercy, forgiveness, compassion, restoration. Because guess what? When I fall, not if, when I fall, I'm going to want that same grace, mercy, compassion, all of that when I do. So that's the mentality that we should have. That's what Jesus knows what's about to happen in this situation. All right. So the people responded to the verdict. No, he's guilty. Then Pilate says, you're a what? Galilean. Oh, that's whose district? Herod. Why did Pilate send to Jesus to Herod?
Want to get rid of him. They're not gonna deal with it.
So he's like, look, this is a political mess.
Right.
I don't want no parts with this. They keep saying that he's guilty. I'm saying that he's innocent. I'm not even trying to deal with this craziness. What? You're a Galilean? This ain't even my district. You can go to Herod. How did Herod react? Is that it? Why?
Because he heard somebody out.
He had been wanting to see Jesus for years. Now, I'm sure Jesus was like, man, I'm not coming to you. If you want to come see me, guess what you're going to have to do? Come see me. Herod was not about to come and lower himself as the ruler to go see Jesus. But we know Herod was ecstatic. Excellent thing. Why? How do we know Herod was ecstatic? That's what the Bible said. He was very glad. So, how did Herod view Jesus? As a what?
And prophet like John was given a miracle.
To me, I think of it like this. It's almost like he's a circus performer magician. Like, oh man, I heard about you. Do a little trick. Here, go kill a dog or something. See if you can raise it from the dead. Or can you raise another from the dead? Which soldier should we stab and you bring it back to life? Can you do that for me? I want to see that. Because I had heard about who? Who do you think Herod had heard about? Lazarus. He's heard about, because this is his territory. Who else has Jesus raised from the dead? Pick which one. Widow's son and name. Jairus' daughter. Man, I heard you raise her from the dead. All right. I also heard you, the servant girl. No. Jairus' daughter. It was the widow's son and name. And then was it somebody else? Lazarus. It might have been more. John said he don't even have time to write it all down. But we know he's cast out demons. We know he's healed people, all this stuff. The blind, man, hey, can you heal somebody blind? Let me see you do that. Wait, can you multiply some fish? I heard you could do that. Do that. Multiply some fish. You're not gonna do none of that. So the Bible said they did what?
They mocked him.
And did what?
The question, well, first of all, the question.
They questioning.
A long period of time, then they mocked him, and then they dressed him in the early clothing.
So they were mocking him, saying, well, you claim to be, or they're saying that you're the what? King of the Jews. So guess what we're going to do? Correct. In an effort to try to what?
Get him to speak.
Get him to speak? I think they were trying to humiliate him. Because if you're the king of the Jews and we're in power, we're going to treat your king this way.
I don't think they was trying to get it.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, they humiliate him, but he still does the same thing.
He didn't say that. I don't know about you, but that's hard. Have you ever had people like openly try to humiliate you or do it? Like talk about you all that type of stuff, and you don't say nothing. Oh, now it's one, like she said, it's one thing for them to talk about you behind your back, but they do it in your face.
Yeah.
And you don't say nothing? Some of y'all work at jobs like that.
No.
So that's why every time I went to those jobs, I had to pray, Lord, you better help me today. Because if I don't have your help, guess what? I can't be quiet. I want to, but I can't. Because so who else was there in front of Herod? The chief priests and the scribes. So guess what? They followed him with the over there. And what were they doing?
They were desperate.
Accusing him. He ain't nothing, he this and that, and this is what he's done, and he's against this. So Herod treating him with contempt, mocking him, dressed him in a gorgeous robe, sent him back to Pilate. Herod and Pilate became friends that very day. But they had been what? So when you think about that, it's like, wow. So Herod mocks and contends. This is what I'm thinking. Wait, do you think Herod and the soldiers hit him?
Yeah, yeah.
We don't know, but you think they did?
I don't think so. Treated him with contempt.
Treated him with contempt and mocking. Because if you ain't been around like soldiers, like police, when they get somebody that they think is guilty, do they?
Yeah.
Do police beat on criminals that they think is wrong?
Yeah.
She said, yes, we do. She know. Former police officer from New York. All right. So Herod and Pilate, we used to have issues. Now we cool.
Isn't that amazing the way people cannot like each other, but when they don't like you, they come together for a common purpose.
Just like the religious leaders, Pharisees and Sadducees, opposite time, opposite sides, worse than Democrats and Republicans. But guess what? They on the same side. They was like, look, what do they call it? Bipartisanship. We gonna collaborate. We gonna work together. We gonna let bygones be bygones, and we gonna do this thing.
That's what's happening in Israel right now. They're bringing together this coalition government.
Happens all the time. The enemy of my enemy. All right. So Pilate and Herod, they cool now. Because I'm sure Herod's like, dude, I didn't expect you to give me this. Thank you. I've been waiting for this for a long time. We, you know what? Let's squash this beef. We all right. You okay? Because Pilate didn't have to do that. But at the same time, did Pilate do it because he was trying to do something good for Herod?
No.
He was just like, man, I'm not trying to deal with this.
No.
So I'm gonna send him to Herod. So Herod's happy.
Pilate had already had problems with political problems before of mishandling some situations in that area. So to prevent him mishandling this situation, he tried to get it out of his hand.
Correct.
So he sent it over to Herod, which is kind of like, I'm trying to get rid of it for Herod.
So historically, the thing is this, they believe that Pilate was kind of in, how do you want to say?
Not good grace.
Political
Yes,
turmoil.
yes, political turmoil. He was barely holding on to his political seat.
Right.
It wasn't, because from Rome's standpoint, if you can't manage your region well, they will just replace
They
you.
replaced it, right.
So if there's a lot of insurrection, if there's a lot of turmoil, if there's a lot of uprisings in your area, with the,
But think how the Pharisees, they proposed this to Pilate. They went to him showing that this man.
they knew
all kinds
exactly
of
what they
abuse,
were saying.
Because they knew how Pilate was, and if this keeps going, you're gonna lose your job. So they knew what they were doing. They were
Absolutely.
accusing him and accusing him of the Yeah, very he thought same he was thing that getting he was
Oh,
in trouble with.
By doing that.
So Pilate and Herod, they now cool.
Right.
So now we read. What is verse 13? What does he say to the people? You brought this man to me who does what? He's trying to start rebellion. That's what you're saying.
Right.
But what did Pilate say he did?
I can't find anything that he did. Let's leave it.
I don't see none of this stuff that y'all basically are accusing him of. So watch this. He's still, in this case, what? Pilate has already declared him again, what? Not guilty. Look, I've already said it, went to Herod. We don't find any evidence of the charges that you're bringing against him.
That's the second time.
Mhm. There we go. Nothing deserving of death. Therefore, I will what? So what do you think that punishment was?
They don't really know.
So watch this. Why do you think Pilate beat him as bad as he did? To try to appease the people.
Yeah.
Because let me beat him almost to death in an effort to appease the people so I can do what? Let him go.
Let him go.
So he was beat 3 times in 3 different locations.
Now, we don't know in that case.
And what I'm reading is, from.
Now, we can't say he was beaten, but he was treated with contempt. We can assume that they roughed him up. But we know specifically at this point in time, this is where he got the scourging. This is where he got the beatings. This is where it's the cat of 9 tails, plowed his back open, all that type of stuff. He is a bloody mess. This is where we know where we, in this case, this is probably where they ripped out his beard, they punched him in the face, they did the who hit you, all of that stuff. We believe it happened at this point in time. Why? What is the motivation behind it? And that's what I'm trying to get us to see. Why would Pilate beat down or allow the soldiers to beat him down and treat him so badly?
So that the people would
be satisfied.
Yeah.
And basically release him. I know what y'all are doing, and I don't want to kill him. So I'm going to try to do what's best as I can to keep the what? The peace.
Yeah.
I'm trying to satisfy you who want him dead. I don't want to kill him, but let me do something to him to satisfy you guys so you guys can go on about your business. Now, it says he was obliged to do what? So this is where you get the difference, right? You go to other things, correct. And you'll see that during the Passover, it was customary for the leader to do what?
Release
one prisoner.
The choice of the people.
Correct. So he basically gives them a choice. Now, if he wants to release them, he says, I'm going to choose between Jesus and. Do you think he picked the worst one he could have picked?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Why? Because his desire is to release. So he picked the absolute worst one that he could pick. So then when he says, I'll give you a choice. You could have Jesus or you could have Barabbas. What did they choose? Now, what do we know about Barabbas? If you want copies of the chronology of the 4 Gospels, I have that here for you. I know. No, I'm gonna put it here. You can come get it later. All right. So if you want that, that's there for you. All right. Kind of man was he? insurrectionist and a murderer. What does insurrectionist mean? He basically was a person that was trying to start rebellion. So, wait, since you're claiming that Jesus is a insurrectionist and he's this one who's stirring the people to do wrong, let me see who's the worst one. One who's known to be an insurrectionist and a murderer, and this Jesus who's claiming just to be the clean king of the Jews. I'll give you the choice. The people say what?
They said John was wrong.
I don't know how Donald Trump got it. I'm sorry. I apologize. It's my fault. I opened that can of worms. I admit. We don't need to. I admit. I'm sorry. I apologize. I don't know how we got on Barabbas.
It was not even
Okay.
worth the beans
All right.
spoken.
Here we go. So Pilate wanted to release him. Basically, he says, "Who do you choose? Barabbas, Jesus?" They say, "Give us what?"
This man give us.
Give us Barabbas. All right. So then what happens?
They crucified him.
No, Pilate said to them again. At that point there, verse 20. Pilate addressed them once more, designed to release Jesus. But they kept saying that they wanted.
Luke doesn't go into detail. But see, when you look at the other gospels, this is where he says, "Look, I find no fault in this man." He then goes and does what? And says, "His blood is not on my hands."
Yes.
This is a crazy thing the people said. What do they say? His blood is on us and our children.
Yes.
That's how badly they wanted Jesus,
And-
not just killed, but crucified.
This is a good point. Skip to verse 28. Talk about the children.
It's crazy.
See, and this is the thing. We're going to better understand why Jesus says some of the things that he says while on the cross, while going up because once they basically, Pilate says, "All right, crucify him." They then put that crossbeam, and he has to carry that crossbeam out of the city of Jerusalem, up a hill. And you should know, if you've been in church long enough, what's the name of that hill? Golgotha. It's shaped like a what? Skull. Do you know how long of a walk that is? It's about 300 yards.
Right.
It's like 3 football fields. Now, this is after Jesus has been beaten. So now, stirred, beaten, bloody, mess, unrecognizable, he has to carry this crossbeam 300 yards up a hill to get to the top of this hill where you're going to see where they put people. Why would they put people at the top of the hill? As a deterrent for those who are insurrectionists or criminals or whatever it is, because that deterrent is there. If you want to do this, this is what happens to you. So we're going to crucify you. Now, if you understand crucifixion, you understand that it was supposed to last for days, plural. So it was an agonizing, torturous thing. You understand, when they put the nails in your wrists, not in your hand, in your wrists, both wrists spread out, and then in your ankles, usually turn to the side. So that what happens is you're slumping down, and in order to take a breath, you have to push up and then drop back down. Now, this is what gets me, and this messes me up when I think about it. I don't know if it's true, but I imagine it. Do you think that pole that he was on was slick and smooth?
No.
Have you ever touched a telephone pole?
Yeah.
You've never touched touch a telephone pole, and then think that Jesus was on a pole like that. It'll jack you up.
Yeah.
I mean, jack you up. Because if you touch a telephone pole, it's not smooth. And I guarantee you better not move your hand. Because if you do, it will tear you up. Now imagine you're on your back with it plowed open. And the only way you can take a breath is by sliding up, taking a breath and slumping back down. I know. It's a whole different situation. So we're not even there yet. We're supposed to stop at 25. But 26 says, when they led him away, they seized a man, Simon of Cyrene. Cyrene is in Africa. This is an African man coming in from the country, placed him on the cross to carry behind Jesus. Why would he have to do that?
Jesus,
He was bleeding and everything.
He was too physically weak to be able to carry. So they basically grabbed a big black man. Come in, bro. That big black man couldn't say no. Because Rome was in charge. And when a soldier told you to do something, to carry something, whatever it was, you obeyed or you died. There was no like, well, this is police protection. No, it was, yes, sir. Pick that thing up and carry it up that hill.
I read that he was a friend of Jesus, in one place. Is that true?
We don't know. We can't infer stuff like that. The Bible doesn't tell us that. This is where we go beyond history, like with history or historical beliefs. But even with that, it's like, how will we know that? We don't know if he was just there, if he was following. Some people might infer. And there's all kinds. They've made movies about Barabbas. They've made movies about the coat, the cloak that they put in Jesus on, the robe that they wrapped in. They've done. Hollywood has sensationalized everything and anything in regards to that. To the point where they're selling pieces of the cross, like this is a piece of the cross that Jesus is on, and they all it's like we don't know. We don't know. There's no way to possibly know. So the point is this: as we look at what is happening and why it's happening, we better understand Pilate's position and the fact that the Jews, the religious leaders, knew exactly what to say to him in order to get him to basically go past his conscience of knowing that this is an innocent man and doing what they wanted him to do. Right. Because Pilate was going to let him go.
But I was, everything that you're saying, I definitely understand. This is why he had to pray to get his mind, his body ready.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I didn't understand it before we got here.
Correct. Because if you knew that was going to happen to you, oh no, I'm not. That's why I compared it to how many of you have ever been in a situation where you knew some people were after you and they was going to jump and you went anyway. That's called stupid. Because it's like, okay, if you show up in this place, me and my boys gonna get you, and you know they gonna jump you, and you go anyways. By yourself? That's called stupid. Really stupid. But Jesus, in that situation, once again, even if he had his boys, he was like, y'all ain't gonna do me no good. You don't even understand what's about to happen. Please pray with me. And they was like, yeah, we pray for you. Man, wake up, pray just an hour. It ain't even gonna be that long. Can you pray with me? Yeah, I'm sorry, Jesus. We gonna pray. Lord, just man, I told you, man. Can't you just at least pray with me an hour? So by the third time, he was like, never mind. They already it's never mind. They coming. What you mean they coming? So all of a sudden they see a big old mob of people with swords, spears, and lanterns and torches. Like I said, think of Frankenstein. You got all these people mob coming up. We looking for Jesus. But it's in the night, and so Judas comes up and kisses. He's all, you betraying me with a kiss? Really? Who you looking for? Jesus, I'm he. Peter's like, oh, it's on. Whoosh. Put that away. Put that away. Wait, since you're looking for me, let all these guys go. So they ran. Mark talks about one of them was in a linen cloth and they grabbed that and he ran away naked. So if you don't think they wasn't scared, they were terrified. Because it's like, wait, they're arresting you and you're telling us not to fight? What we gonna do? Like, we just gonna stand there and let them take you? But
the thing is, he told them to bring weapons with them, and then he told them not to fight.
Sorry.
so it's like,
But was that not symbolic with what you're saying, sister, with bringing the weapons? Because, I think I read something where, when we talk about putting on a helmet of salvation and, we girding ourselves with the word, but yet how we're supposed to be wise and yet harmless at the same time.
so now you start thinking about it. Did he tell them to bring a sword here? Or did he tell them to bring a sword after he rose?
Right.
So before it was like, we happen to have a sword, so we'll go from there. He dies, he comes back, he's like, okay, now you're gonna need a sword in this situation to protect yourself. And they're like, okay. But you have to go to Jerusalem because you have to get what? Power. From what? Once you're endued with power, then you'll be my witnesses. In where? Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and the uttermost parts of the world. Now, in their mind, they're like, okay. And at the end, now they're saying, wait, after everything that happened, is now the time you go set up your kingdom?
That's why they turned on me.
No, this is with the disciples. After Jesus died, basically comes back, starts telling them all this stuff. He's like, I'm going now to prepare. They was like, okay. Now you gonna set up your kingdom? Is now the time you gonna do it? And they was like, no, I'm coming back. But I need you to do this until I come back. Now, I always thought this. In my mind, I'm thinking they probably didn't think he'd be gone this long.
Right.
So they was like, we got to do what we need to do. He coming back. We don't know when. So we're gonna go out here and do this thing. But they had no idea.
Not telling you, count, but how many times did Jesus get a little upset with them because they just wouldn't get it. They were not getting it. And we still do that today. Still
Correct.
not getting it.
And I don't know if it's necessarily upset, but it's frustration.
Yeah.
Of like, how many times I gotta say, I said it again, I gotta do it again. And that's why the Bible will say, verily, verily, that's, King James. Verily, it means again. I said it again, I'm gonna say it again. I told you, but y'all not getting it. And wait, but see, now he understands that they don't get it. He says, you're not gonna understand it now, but there's gonna come a time when the Holy Spirit's in you, he's gonna bring it back to your remembrance, and then you'll better understand it. So I already know, even though I tell you, you're not gonna get it, and that's okay. I'm gonna tell you anyways, but you're not gonna get it. Just like when he told all the people all the stuff that's what's gonna happen. Because as we've gone through it, and he told them what was gonna happen. He says the Messiah is gonna be handed into the hands of sinful men and be crucified. But then he's gonna do what? He's gonna rise on the third day. So that he told them. It's not like he didn't. It was like, mysterious, whatever. They was like, wait, you're the Messiah. You can't die. That's not possible. They didn't get it. It wasn't until after all this happened, then when the Spirit brings it back, they was like, he did tell us this. He's been telling us all this time. And we just didn't get it.
And I said, to me, that highlights these, like, just even in our time, particularly when you say, like, noted the Spirit what brought it back to them. When you think about the Jewish people, and oppressed people. And so you think about being oppressed. Again, look around the room, right? Think about oppression and being oppressed and oppressed for decades across time. You are looking for liberation. Right. I mean, and so their mindset in the flesh, like, man, there's no way. There's no way you talking about it until him. And to me, it highlights. I was just listening to a sermon this week about just Jesus's kingdom and how it's literally the opposite of the world. And not until the spirit brings it to him. And so, right, in Jesus' kingdom, to live, you have to die.
Yeah.
You bless those who curse you.
Yeah.
You love those who hate you. Right. So to me, I mean, I can see and understand, like, literally, like, there's no way. There's no way you tell us all this and you're gonna die,
You're gonna die.
but you're gonna liberate us.
Right.
Doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense until the spirit
Shows you exactly what it means. All right, brother Buffet, I see your hand.
Yeah, I was gonna also kind of speak to how, you know, a lot of people think that like the Europeans are the one who like gave us the gospel. But you can kind of see, like, even with Simon from Cyrene being in Africa, like a lot of Jewish people was coming back and forth to Israel, especially during Passover. And a lot of them was there to see what happened. And then they went back to Africa, you know, and then, you know, you got the Ethiopian eunuch. So it's like the gospel was already going back to Africa. It's like one of the first countries they get it, you know, just to kind of debunk that fact that a lot of people think that, you know, Jesus was white and we worshiping a white person that the white people gave us. But, you know, Africa had the gospel early, you know, so that's one thing I see too with the people who was coming back and forth during the Passover, coming from Africa and then taking that same information that they see back.
Absolutely. Now, I'll say more than just Africa, because Jews were from all over the world. So the thing is this, we always just focus on like European and Africa as if they didn't go into Saudi Arabia, they didn't even go all into China or Russia and whatever the rest. Jews were all over the world, they had to come back. So guess what? Everything that happened during that time, they went home and they probably talked about it. Not a probably, they absolutely talked about it. Some of them stayed where they were because once again, after Jesus comes back and rises from the dead, how many days after that was the day of Pentecost? 50. 2 months happens like that. So if you stand with your family, and that's what a lot of them did, all of a sudden, thousands of people are getting saved. They are. Everybody's together, eating, learning. What's this thing about Christianity? What's this thing about Jesus? God has to institute persecution to scatter them back out.
Right.
Because had he not, would they have stayed there?
Yes.
So he basically says, persecute, we're gonna start killing Christians. Oh, they killing people, we going, honey, it's been a nice vacation. It was a cool 60 days. It's been wonderful seeing family and friends. I know y'all been waiting for us to leave, but yeah, it's time for us to go back to wherever we came from. In Asia, Saudi Arabia, different parts of Africa, Ethiopia, all that kind of stuff. We be praying for y'all, but pray for our traveling grace and mercy, but we out. Bye. The Bible tells us that certain specific regions, they went. So the Ethiopian eunuch, yes, absolutely. The gospel has been in Africa, in Asia, in Russia, in different parts of Europe since the beginning. We just don't know. We are only told of the European aspect of it.
It makes you think of when they were trying to build a tower to go up to God.
Correct. And he split them up and basically said, "No, let me stop this. Because if y'all all get together, you're gonna be able to do whatever you want to do. And I don't want you to have something without me. So let me break that up real quick fast. All right, so next week we'll do part 2. We'll start with 26 and kind of go a third of the way and go from there. All right, praise reports, prayer requests. Let me do some quick announcements before we get to there. Quarterly business meeting is this Wednesday. We're still having Bible study, but we'll just have the business meeting afterwards. Walk of life this Saturday. CPR, class and vaccination clinic is this Saturday also. Please register for that. The Riverside giveaway and fellowship with the outreach is also there. We got a lot happening on the 21st. Pastor's appreciation next Sunday during service. the trunk or treat. We're partnering with Spring Valley Presbyterian Church on the 22nd. That's next Sunday, from 2 to 3:30. So if you're interested in hosting, basically being one of the trunks that gives out candy, go ahead and sign up for that. And you could do that. But if you want to give your kids a bunch of candy, jack them up. That's on you, Spring Valley. There we go. Deacon Family Fellowship, the 29th. And we're starting a new Sunday school class, November 5th, the Book of Acts, that will be taught by Sister Lanzetta Newsom and Sister April Jackson. So they're going to start a Sunday school class because we multiply by dividing. So we will always want to start those with new members or whatever it may be. It's open to everyone. Doesn't have to be new members, but if you like her, you can leave my class. I give you permission. Poor baby.
That's so sweet.
Is it so sweet? She's good though. You see how she, she got the little things for y'all. She's taught me a lot in the years.
She's doing.
She's going through the Book of Acts.
And then you are.
He's still gonna.
Me, I'm gonna be in Luke. Now, the next book, I was gonna do Mark, but we're gonna do that in church. I was gonna do Matthew, but the women are doing Matthew. So I gotta figure out which book I'm gonna do next. Do what? James? We already did James.
And Stan is still doing the class also?
Yes, so we're gonna have officially 3 Sunday school classes. So it'll be me, Brother Stan Kennedy, and then Sister Lanzetta Newsom and Sister April Jackson. They'll be downstairs in the old section over there. That'll be the first Sunday in November. All right, praise and
Good morning, everyone. Yes, I have a prayer request. My good friend Calvin Woods had a kidney transplant, and so he is now recovering. So if you all would just lift him in prayer.